So I wanted to just read, this is Constellations by David White. He's another fave of mine. And this is his little musings on rest. And obviously restorative poses are all about rest. So I hope you enjoy. So I want you to start tonight before I read. We're going to start lying down. So I want you to get super comfortable so that it's story time, right? So I'm going to read a little bit to you. So I want you to be as easeful as you can, which means not even sitting up. So start on your back, unless on your side or on your belly feels more comfortable to you. And just take a moment to stretch out your knees, stretch out your legs. Maybe find that fullness of a full body extension. And then bring the knees into the chest and give yourself a little hug. Put your head back down and rock just a little bit until you feel like there's some ease in your body, and then come to rest. And you can either bend your knees or straighten them, whichever's comfortable for you if you're on your back. Well, let's just take a moment to drop, starting Shavasana before we even begin, letting there be a sense of surrender. That surrender is really, really vital to the gift of rest that we're embarking on in our restorative practice. So start to focus on the breath. Come into the state of ease, letting your eyes rest, your jaw rest. Breathing deeply and fully. Feeling the completeness of an inhale and the completeness of an exhale. And just travel down that road of really starting to feel yourself at rest. Rest is the conversation between what we love to do and how we love to be. Rest is the essence of giving and receiving, an act of remembering, imaginatively and intellectually, but also psychologically and physically. To rest is to give up on the already exhausted will as the prime motivator of an endeavor, with its endless outward need to reward itself through established goals. To rest is to give up on worrying and fretting and the sense there's something wrong with the world unless we are there to put it right. To rest is to fall back literally or figuratively from outer targets and shift the goal not to an inner static bullseye, an imagined state of perfect stillness, but to an inner state of natural exchange. The template of natural exchange is the breath, the autonomic giving and receiving that forms the basis and the measure of life itself. We are rested when we are a living exchange between what lies inside and what lies outside. When we are an intriguing conversation between the potential that lies in our imagination and the possibilities for making the internal image real in the world. We are rested when we let things alone and when we let ourselves alone to do what we do best. Breathe as the body intended us to breathe. Walk as we were meant to walk. Live with the rhythm of a house and a home, giving and taking through cooking and cleaning. When we give and take in an easy foundational way, we are closest to the authentic self, and closest to that self when we are most rested. To rest is not self-indulgent. To rest is to prepare to give the best of ourselves, and to, perhaps most importantly, arrive at a place where we are able to understand what we have already been given. In the first state of rest is the sense of stopping, of giving up on what we have been doing or how we have been being. In the second is the sense of slowly coming home, the physical journey into the body's uncoerced and unbullied self, as if trying to remember the way or even the destination itself. In the third state is a sense of healing and self-forgiveness and of arrival. In the fourth state, deep in the primal exchange of the breath, is the give and the take, the blessing and the being blessed, and the ability to delight in both. The fifth stage is a sense of absolute readiness and presence, a delight in and an anticipation of the world and all its forms, a sense of being the meeting itself between inner and outer, and that receiving and responding occurs in one spontaneous movement. A deep experience of rest is the template of perfection in the human imagination, a perspective from which we are able to perceive the outer specific forms of our work and our relationships while being nourished by the shared foundational gift of the breath itself. From this perspective, we can be rested while putting together an elaborate meal for an arriving crowd, while climbing the highest mountain, or sitting at home surrounded by the chaos of a loving family. Rested, we are ready for the world, but not held hostage by it. Rested, we care again for the right things and the right people in the right way. In rest, we reestablish the goals that make us more generous, more courageous, more of an invitation, someone we want to remember, and someone others would want to remember too. So now that you've been lying on your back for a while, let's just come into the breath again. We're going to go a little bit backwards through our practice tonight, a little differently than we've been doing. We're going to start with a little bit of movement and then move into some self-massage and then into some restorative practices. So let's start opening up our body one more time, stretching into a starfish, navel to our edges. Wiggle the fingers and the toes while you're out there in your edges. And then exhale and bring your knees into your chest and rock around a little bit. Keep your head down onto the ground this time. All right, let's roll our ankles while we're here, giving some freedom to our bare feet. And then open the knees and spread them apart from each other and then bring them back in. Just feeling that sense of whatever range of motion the hips are allowing right now. Let's go ahead and put our feet onto the floor. Bring your right foot and put it on top of your left knee. We're going to come into reverse pigeon pose. So grab on either to the left shin or behind the left thigh and interlace. You can always use a strap around your shin as well if it's hard to reach, if you feel like you're having to pick your head up or your shoulders up to reach. And then once you find a place where you want to be, just gently rock here. Go left and right. And remember, whatever spoke to you from the words of David White, know that entering into a state of rest really does have some stages to it. That we can't go deep into the very center of our peaceful place always so easily. So it takes a little time, a little letting go of layers to get there. So some of our layers can be within movement and some of our layers can be within stillness. Right foot down, left foot on top of right knee. Interlace the fingers behind your hamstring on your right leg or on the top of your shin on your right shin. And pay attention, how's your left foot feeling? Is it collapsed? Do you need to have some stretching energy? And notice a little movement on this side, going left and right. And what's here? How is this side different from the other side? Sometimes I take my right hand to the outside of my leg and keep it on my shin, and I take my left hand on my left knee as I do some swaying or circling. So you can, adjust these postures any way that's working for your body. All right, and then let's go ahead and release the legs again, knees into the chest. Grab onto your strap. We're going to lift both legs up in the air, feet into the strap, and extend through the hamstrings. Find some length in your body. So the shoulders are dropped down away from the ears. The heads of the femur bones are drawing back. The knees are soft. Stretch up through your feet, root down through your hips, and extend the spine. So just enjoy the little zing that might be happening in the back of your legs. Let's go ahead and keep the right foot there Stretch the left leg long on the floor, opening up the sensation through your right leg very specifically. Lift the heel, spread out the bones of your toes and the bones inside your foot. Move the right hip away from the shoulder. And let's open to the left with our leg. So hold the strap into the left hand. We're going to cross the leg over the body. And once again, maybe a little movement is good here. Maybe a little stillness is what you need. Just come into the sensation of the outer hips. Open the spine again. Stretch through both feet. All right, and then we're going to pick that leg back up again. 2 feet into the strap one more time. And this time we're going to put our right foot on the floor. Left foot stays in the strap. You can stretch your right leg on the ground. You can also bend your knee and put your foot on the floor. Feel the reaching up through the foot and down through the hip. Feel the space in the hip joint. So try not to let the left hip hike up toward the shoulder, but move it away from your ear. Opening the spine up, taking some full deep breaths. The shoulders are soft. And then we're going to take the strap over to our right hand. We're going to cross the left leg over to the right. Maybe you want to take your left hand in the hip crease and stretch that hip away from the shoulder. Maybe you want to press your foot into the strap a little bit more. How's your breath affecting how you feel? So if the breath is our medium for coming into rest, can you gather up your awareness and attention and place it squarely on the breath and try to keep it there? So even as we go through traveling sensations in the body, can you have one eye on the steadiness of your breath? Let's lift that leg straight up in the air. Take the strap off. We're going to lift both knees into the chest again. And this time we're going to bring our legs wide. So this is a big pose for that we haven't done anything yet. So you may not be able to reach your peace fingers to your big toes. That might be way too far. In which case you can either put your hands over your legs and hold your inner thighs, or under your legs, and elbows can be on the floor supporting your legs. Stretch through the feet. Just open up the groins a little bit. And then we're going to bend our knees. Bring the knees a little closer and come into happy baby pose. So as you drop your knees toward the floor, don't push down right away. This is a very big stretch for your back. So at first, just be very gentle and feel some rocking left and right. All right, and then once you're steady, maybe feel some compression in the hips. It might feel good. Maybe you want to do less. You do you. How is your breath? All right, let's stretch our legs on the floor one more time. Arms and legs wide apart. And then knees into the chest. Pick your head up this time. Feel the spine. And then put your feet down onto the ground. You're starting to wake up the spine a little bit more. We're going to windshield wiper our knees. And you can add arms to this if you want. Stretching your other arm up and over. Just finding what's feeling good in the body. We're going to travel a little bit more to the front of our body. So everybody roll over onto your right side. Have a little support underneath your head with your arm or with a blanket. And we're going to grab onto our left ankle. And you can bring your foot, your knee closer to your chest to grab this. Hold onto the ankle and then come back. And let's just get into the quads a little bit, stretching your quadriceps. Even though this is pretty gentle on our side, and you can use a strap, so if you can't reach your ankle, if your quad doesn't stretch open that much, wrap a strap to, or grab your pants. You can always grab your pant leg too. So there's lots you can do to find your way here. Once you're where you're going to be, stretch your tailbone toward the knee, lift your pubic bone a little bit toward your navel. Make sure your head feels supported and that you're stable, so your leg on the floor can be very bent. So to keep yourself stable, find your breath. And then we're going to go ahead and just roll right over onto our other side and do the same. So you can bring your knee toward your chest to grab your ankle and then bring it back. You can support with a strap or holding onto your pants if that feels comfortable for you. Make sure your head feels supported. So you don't want your head just falling into the floor. Your arm might be enough, but maybe that doesn't feel comfortable for your body. Maybe your shoulder doesn't like that. So grab props if you need it. And then start to stretch your quad. Tailbone toward your knee, pubic bone toward the belly button so that your pelvis is helping your quadriceps stretch. Discover your breath here. Let's go ahead and relax. Stretch one more time into your starfish. And this time, stretch the backs of your knees. So a lot of times, I really discourage you from hyperextending the knees, but just for the moment, feel all the muscles in the back of your knees open. Flex your feet. And then bring your knees into your chest. Rock around a little bit and come up onto all fours. So let's wake the spine just a little bit before we start doing some self-massage through the spine. So you can arch and round the back, taking your time as you move through some cat-cows so the sit bones can widen, the chest and head can lift up. The exhale comes, the navel to the spine, the chest rounds, the head drops, the tail drops. And just finding that movement through your vertebrae. And then anything you want to do. So your spine, it works hard for you all day long. So give it a little bit of ease. You can swivel around, do some circles, anything that feels good in your body. Just find your way into some movement that feels good. Then for a moment, come down onto the top of your head. Take your fingers, pads, behind your knees. Draw your calves down, so pull your calf muscle away, and then come back towards child's pose. With a little bit, you can slide your hands out of there, a little bit more gap behind your knees. And you can do this with your knees close together or far apart. Just discover what feels good. And if your knees are bothering you at all, you can also take your little rolled towel that we have with our rubber bands. And if you want, you can stick that right into the back of the knees and come back. Now this makes child's pose a little bit more difficult because your calf muscles now have some pressure. So if you want to, you can have some support of props to come down and rest on so that you're not going back so far. This is ideally done with a flat surface instead of a round surface. Sometimes I take at the edge of my mat. You can have just a folded bit of mat, like this much mat, and do that behind your knees as well. There's lots of things that you can kind of wedge in there to give your knees just a little more spaciousness. This is way more comfortable than the rolled towel. So a flatter surface will be kinder to your calves, but give you that pocket of space. So it's just something to try if your knees are a little cranky and need a little spaciousness. Now, whatever you're doing with your knees, if you want to keep your prop there, you can. You can take it out, or maybe you're not using it at all. We're walking our hands to the left, opening up the right side body. Feel your breath travel there. Fill yourself up. Empty yourself out. Relax the base of the skull. And then come back to center and inch over to the other side. Finding a sense of openness through your rib cage. Breathe deeply. Exhale fully. The base of the skull is soft and quiet. And then go ahead and come back up onto all fours. Let's find the twist that we often do. So onto all fours, we're going to pick up our right arm. And when you're ready, slide the right arm down, finding yourself a twist. Breathe here. Find your space. Full breaths in, full breaths away. Fill yourself up and empty yourself out. Okay, hopefully that'll get rid of the ancillary noise. Okay, and then take another breath. And let's come back out of the posture. Place the hand down onto the ground and change sides. Arm up, slide that arm down, finding your twist. Discovering your breath, gaze at the floor, the base of the skull is soft and relaxed. And then inhale and lift that arm up in the sky and place the hand down onto the ground. The one and only dog pose we're going to do, stretch through your calves. Feel the backs of your knees. Even if your knees are bent, see if you can broaden and open the backs of the knees, lifting the sit bones, extending through the rib cage. Feel the roots of your hands. Feel the roots of your whole body. Wherever you are in space, find your freedom of breath. And then let's come down to child's pose again. If you want to take some gap behind your knees, you can find that gap again to see what's there. All right, and then go ahead and come on up. Last of the more active poses we're going to do, we're just going to come into a lunge. So your left foot is going to come forward, your right leg's going to come back. You can hold on to furniture, you can use blocks under your hands, you can have your hand on your thigh, whichever's moving and working for you. Extend the spine, try not to sink, have that sense of stability of hugging the front heel and the back knee toward each other. And you get to decide whether you want to add a little twist in here, maybe a deeper twist in here, maybe no twist in here. How's your breath? Feel the hip flexors on that right leg broaden and open. And then relax and come out of that posture, back onto all fours, maybe a cat-cow. And then bringing your foot forward, coming into a lunge on this side. So be really mindful to not just fall into your lunge. You want to have some stability. So we're not just kind of hanging in the posture. Front heel and back knee move a little bit toward each other to give you that extension through the spine. Breathe here. Open the hip flexors on this leg. And then when you're ready, you decide. Do you want to be here? Maybe you want to bring your arms up. Maybe you want to find yourself moving into a twist. Just see what gives you what your body's looking for at this moment in time. Deep inhale. Deep exhale. And let's go ahead and come on out of there. And we're going to start with some of our props for massage. All right, so the trusty old roll towel with 3 rubber bands on it. I think all of you have done this, so you know to just, roll up the towel and secure it with rubber bands. And I really encourage you to do this as often as you want. It may not seem like a lot at the moment, but I hope you're all discovering that this is a really beautiful self-massage tool. So we're going to start with this in our shoulders. So right at the tops of your shoulders, kind of at the crease, the bony part of your shoulder blades. And remember, we're trying to push off our feet to find that movement up and down like this, to try to quiet the pelvis. A lot of times when we do this, we tend to rock the pelvis a little bit. And if that happens to you, see what you can do. Maybe you need to walk your feet further away. Sometimes it's helpful to put your feet up against, I'll turn around so you can see it this way. You can put your feet up against the edge of a couch. This could be something that can be helpful to keep you having something to kind of push off of that will keep your pelvis from doing this, from doing some pelvic tilts. So discover what's going to help you be easeful in your body when you're doing this. So you start the roll in the upper edges of your shoulder blades. And we're going to bring our arms into flexion. So that means our arms are over our chest. And then we're gonna bring our arms into extension. That means our arms come over our head. All the while we're pushing off the feet to feel that rocking back and forth. And then we're gonna come up and we're gonna take rotation in the spine. So we're walking our head and our arms over to one side, and then coming back up and walking our head and our arms over to the other side. The key here is to try to quiet the pelvis and let the movements travel all the way from your tail to your crown. So we're really trying to rock this way instead of some weird pelvic movements, you know, not weird, but just we want to keep the pelvis quiet. And then as you drop down, you can slide the the roll towel a little bit lower in between the middle shoulder blades now. And you just do the same thing. Flexion with your arms over your chest, rocking, breathing, extension, arms overhead. And if your shoulder bothers you, experiment. Sometimes when my shoulder bothers me, if I hold the wrist of the shoulder that's bothering me and cross it past the midline and then stretch it over, it takes a little of the tenderness away, but that's unique to my shoulder. So you can experiment with different positions of the arms overhead. And maybe out further feels better for you, maybe closer in toward the midline feels better for you. So you experiment and then finding rotation. Going to each side, breathing as you go. So we're just going to travel down the spine. So taking your next pass, moving down incrementally. And you can have your feet flat on the floor or your feet against a couch or a wall or a bolster against a wall. Finding the flexion through your arms, the extension. Notice how your breath is different depending on what your arms are doing. And then rotation. And you get to decide how long you want to hang out in each spot. You might find some spots that are like, oh yeah, that's my spot. I have to stay here for a long time. And if that's the case, if you find a spot that feels really good for you to work with, then hang out there. There's no rush to travel. There's no destination. So let go of the goals. This is part of those steps of moving inward toward the state of rest, is to do less doing and do more being, be more being, okay? So what does that mean to you? How is your breath a cultivator of the presence of being instead of the goal-oriented nature of doing? And you may notice that some places are hot spots. You might have some hot spots. And so when you find those hot spots that maybe you don't like because, oh, this hurts, or what's happening here, I don't know about this, then maybe you need to slow down, vibrate a little less. Maybe you need to be still for a moment and just explore your breath in a spot. So this is your practice. You get to modify this however is right for your body. And as you travel downwards, so if you're going faster than me and you're already into your low back, you might notice that when you get to your low back, that you lose contact, that it's no longer feeling so effective. And if that's the case, you can bring your knees toward the chest and just rock with your hands on your knees until you get down to the sacrum, in which case you might now have some capacity to have your feet back down on the floor. So there's always ways to alter your movement, either by moving your feet further away, by moving your feet closer, by bringing your knees to your chest. And sometimes I find some delicious spots in my low back that I kind of want to rock left and right with too. So this is your practice. Be creative. Find what feels really nice for your body and get into it a little bit. Give yourself the time to just be here. The other thing that I notice is when I get down to my tailbone, like the bottom edge of my my pelvis, I kind of lose it again. In which case, perhaps straightening your leg, I don't have enough room here, but straightening your legs and just moving your feet sometimes can get into that very bottom edge
of the sacrum and kind of pushing off your heels. So there's so many different places to play in the body. You get to experiment with what gives you the sensation that you most want. All right, so there's all sorts of ways to play. Whatever you're doing, make sure you're breathing. The most important thing that you do through these passes of self-massage is to cultivate a sense of surrender and kind of suppleness that the breath gives. When you breathe well in these poses, your body responds and receives. So remember, rest is about receiving. It's about feeling blessed so that you can go and do more of your own blessing out there in the world. It's our time, and especially now when we're not as nourished by relationships as we normally are. You know, the ways we are fed throughout the day by the interactions with all the people that we meet, we're a little lacking, right? We're a little lonely, a little isolated. So give yourself these blessings, things that you often look toward others. See if you can come into yourself and find that. And then when you're done, and there's no rush to get done at all, but when you do find you're coming to a place of completion with this, there's a few things that you can do. You can just be still for a moment and let your body be at ease, either with your legs straight or with your legs bent. You can even knock your knees toward each other. And just notice the echoes in the body of the massage. What's alive in you? What's more supple in you? Where is your breath more easily going than it did before? In the last couple of weeks, we focused on the neck and shoulders a lot in the self-massage. So today I want to focus a little bit on the low back and the hips. So we're going to take our tennis balls in our tube sock, okay? And we're going to take this very similarly to what we just did. But I want you to put it at the bottom of your rib cage, right at the top of your low back. And sometimes when I start with this, I keep my hips up for a moment and I slowly let them descend. And if you feel that this is too much pressure, you can grab a blanket, a thin blanket, and put it underneath your pelvis so that you have a little height underneath you so that the bolster or the balls are not so intense as they push into the back. Okay, so you get to decide. You can always support yourself in lots of different ways. And I want you to just nourish that with your breath. See what it feels like. And then with your feet, if you're comfortable, if you've gotten settled, take your feet a little wider than your hips. And not big windshield wipers, not big movements and twists, but I just want you to smile the knees to the left like you're waving hi to somebody over there, and then smile the knees to the right like you're waving to somebody over there. And just notice, you should be below your rib cage now with the two balls on either side of your spine so that you're really diving into the quadratus lumborum muscle, the deep low back muscle. Gets a little bit of work here. So ever so slight movement left and right. And you might find a spot that you're like, oh, I gotta just stay there for a moment. So you find you. If you're at all uncomfortable, try propping your pelvis up a little bit more. And then maybe find a second pass. You might find a new place a little bit lower down. Now you can do a lot with these balls because they roll. You can roll. We're not doing that right now, but I just want to give you the feedback that just what you just did with the blanket, you can, or with the rolled towel, you can do with the balls. Okay, but for now, we're just going to have a little more static hold. And once again, if you need support, you can take it underneath your shoulders too. You can put a blanket under your shoulders and a blanket under your pelvis so that you have a little more gap for those balls to fit, or you can be flat on the floor. And then when you're ready, going a little bit left and right. Make sure your feet are a little wider than your hips so that you have some stability to drop your knees left and right with. And just experiment. Don't go super far. We're not trying to come into twist. We're just trying to weight our left low back and then weight our right low back. Just going back and forth. And sure enough, you're going to find a spot that you're like, oh, I got to stay there. And if that's the case, you stay put. And then perhaps you have enough room for a third pass before touching the sacrum. And just see, every time you find a new place, assess. Do you need support underneath your pelvis or shoulders? Are you able to melt? What's here for this now? And then just going just ever so slightly left and right. These are subtle movements with the knees. We're not doing big, huge movements with the body. How is your breathing? Are you able to stay relaxed in your head, your neck, your shoulders? Is your breath deeply coming in and out? And then now we might start coming on to the very top of the sacrum. Now, sometimes tennis balls are a little too firm for the sacrum, and that's okay. So if you get to this point, you can just stop here. You can switch back to your rolled towel instead of the balls, and we're still just ever so slightly moving left and right. A little more subtle now than when we were in our back. Maybe you want to be still. Maybe stillness is better for you. And then go ahead and go a little bit lower. Typically, I would say if there was softer balls to be had, like the miracle balls that I have, where'd they go? Where'd all my balls go? If you have smushier balls like these, I think these are a little better for under your sacrum. Your sacrum is a very sensitive part of the body. So if you have some softer balls, you can try some softer balls too. All right, then go down a little bit lower, and you can go as low as you want. So once again, you can do the rolling if you like the rolling. You can do the rocking left and right. You can do stillness. There's lots of ways to find just what you're looking for in this pose. All right, so even, you may think, oh, I just got to stop at my sacrum, but you can notice that you can travel pretty far down and get to the two sides of your tailbone. Get into those deeper glute muscles down here right at the bottom edge of your tailbone, rocking left and right. Just, explore. There's a lot of muscles underneath your big, strong glutes. You have 6 other muscles underneath there. And some of them down low, down really low at your tailbone, and even beyond that, are part of the backside of your pelvic floor. So don't hesitate to just kind of explore what it is that you can find. And you can even straighten your legs and travel all the way down toward the sit bones themselves. Okay, so you get to decide how low can you go, right? So anything that feels good in your body is key here. Do you want to be still? Do you want a different spot? Do you want to rock? Do you want to move side to side? What is it that you're exploring? Part of the beauty of self-massage is the exploration, is the coming into the kinesthetic aliveness of feeling your body in a different way. And learning how to rest within that pressure can be a very beautiful thing. All right, so let's take the balls out of there. And once again, you can either have your legs straight or your knees bent, and just notice, is there some ease that needs to happen? Would you rather bring your knees to your chest and rock? How is your body responding to the work? This is some pretty deep work we just did here. So I just want you to be very mindful to be gentle in the body. Let's go ahead and roll over. And we're going to find a twist with a bolster or with a couple of blankets or pillows. We're going to take the bolster out from our left hip, so mirroring me. This leg is going to come into half virasana. So if you can kind of tuck the foot next to you. If your knee doesn't like that, you can let the leg fall. We're going to be turning, so it's going to get a lot more gentle on your knee in just a moment. This bolster or pillows or blankets or couch pillow is out perpendicular from your hip, and you're going to turn toward the bolster and come to lie down on your belly. You can turn your head either way, so whatever is feeling comfortable for you. And for some people, depending on your props, what you have, some people prefer something a little wider And then having their arms down. So you do experiment. I can't tell what you have in your home. A bolster is pretty firm, so if you have totally smushy pillows, it may not be as supportive as you need, but blankets can do a wonderful job. Whatever it is that you want to find your way into this pose. Now, as you're here, whichever way you're turning your head is fine. I want you to come into the breath, into the back body. All the places in your low back and your sacrum that we just worked with the balls, see if you can let the breath travel deeply and expand into the back body as much as you can. Rest your shoulders, relax your head. All right, let's go ahead and lift ourselves up. We're going to come back to center, pause in the center, bring your knees, feet on the floor, knees to your chest, and round your back. Drop your chin toward your chest. Take a deep breath into the back of your body. And then we're going to find our way to the second side. So the bolster or blankets or pillows, whatever you got, are going to come out from your hip. Bend your knee, tuck your foot next to your hip. Turn your torso. You can let this hip lift up off the ground, so you're twisting a lot before you come down to rest. As you find your way, it may be hard to settle in the twisting for a moment. So just see what you can do. You can always turn your head either way. So the head can go in any direction that feels most supportive for your neck, as well as for the breath. So once you're there, see what you can do to rest there, to find that sense of deep ease. Okay, well, how is the back body? Can you breathe into the back of your body? Even though there's some compression around your belly and chest, can you take the breath fully into the belly and chest? All right, and then we're going to come on up. I want you to take a few things here. If you have some blocks to sit on or a blanket to sit on, I want you to get your butt up on something, some support, so that you're not totally down on the ground. And then some more support of bolsters, blankets, whatever you've got, into a very restorative, supported child's pose. So a block may not be you may not have a block, and it also may not be your most comfortable choice. Pillows, blankets, bolsters, whatever you have, get your butt up on something, your sit bones up on something, your knees are wide, pull your support in between your legs and rest upon it. So we're in child's pose that's just a little bit more supportive than it sometimes can be. And enjoy the hug that you are hugging onto something below your chest. If you're always turning your head this way, make sure you're taking time to have a few breaths with your head turned in each direction. Relax the shoulders. Feel the compression in your knees. If your knees are not happy in this posture, you can always go back to taking the folded mat behind your knees so that there's some gap in the back of the knees. You can put more support so you're higher, so that you're not as low
and have less hip and knee compression by putting yourself higher. It's worth taking the time to get comfortable. So if you're like, yeah, I'm kind of okay, and then after a few breaths, you're like, oh, I'm not really okay, change something. If you haven't turned your head yet, go ahead and turn your head the other direction. Melt your heart, melt your chest, melt your heart down. Feel the support below you. Feel the comfort of having all of the vulnerable places supported. Keep moving with the breath. What can you give away to the floor, to the props? What can you give over? Let go. If you've been deprived of hugs, we're supposed to have a whole bunch of hugs every day. So if you've been deprived of hugs, let this feel like a hug. See if you can feel that the earth is giving you a hug.
All right, now we're going to come out. Now you get to decide, maybe you want to stand up and stretch the backs of your legs and open things up. Maybe you don't want to do that. Okay, so you get to decide. We have a choice now. We're going to come into a chest opener of some kind. Okay, so I'm going to give you 3 choices. I'm going to give you 4 choices. That's too many choices. But I'm going to give them to you anyway because I don't know what kind of props you have. Park bench is one, okay, where you have 1 block underneath your spine, 1 block underneath your head, and you're open, okay. You can turn this into the second choice if you want to take the soles of your feet together and come into Suktabadapanasana like this. The knees can fall out. Or you can come into full Suktabadapanasana, which, we're taking our props, so a couch pillow or anything you have. And if this will be the setup for the next variation as well, the next choice. So we're going to come, Suktabadapanasana is, I try to teach this pose every class. So if you want to have support, you can take pillows or blankets underneath your knees, underneath the outer knee, the hip, and just find your way. Sometimes people like an extra blanket under their head, pillows under your arms. Make sure you feel like you're coming into a nest. Suktabadapanasana is the next choice. Maggie, this one's for you. Okay. So I'm going to show you from the side. Once again, you're going to take the head onto the floor so you can get your hands behind your fingers, behind your knees. Pull your calves down and wide a little bit. And you can sit either on the bolster, or if your body goes all the way to the floor, you can come to the floor and stretch back toward Suktabadapanasana, where your knees are bent, your knees are close together, they are not splayed out. And if you're up on the bolster a little bit and you feel like your head is hanging, because that's just the way of it, if you're up on the bolster a little bit, then make sure you have some support for your head. Either way, you might want some support for your head, even if your butt's all the way down onto the ground. All right, and once again, your arms can be down, so the chest is broad. So I think I'll stop there. Those are your three choices: heart bench, Suktabadapanasana, or Virasana. So if you're in Virasana, make sure you're doing that little bit of a pelvic tilt where you're moving the tailbone toward the knees, lifting the pubic bone toward the navel, and then try to rest a little bit in there so that you're not arching the back a whole lot. This is not for everyone. A lot of people don't feel comfortable in this pose unless you have a lot of props, and you may not have what you need. So if you're trying that and you're like, oh, no, then switch and just come into heart bench or Suktabadapanasana. Blankets underneath your knees for Suktabadapanasana. Even in heart bench, if you're just choosing to put the blocks underneath your back, you can have your legs straight or in the butterfly position of Suktabadapanasana. So whatever you're choosing to do, take the time to make sure you feel very, very supported, that your body is at ease. We're going to be here for a little while. And if you start out in one pose and you're like, oh, I don't like that, then just change. You can always adjust and change anything at any time. So once you settle, find your breath. Remember, it's the medium for our rest. What can you do to melt here? Is there some part of you that's strained from the day, from the month, from the last few months? What is it that you can try to open up a little bit in this posture? Give some deep compassion and nurturance to? Can you scan your body for places that might be harboring some unnecessary tension? Bring your exhales right there. Let's find our breath. Maybe straighten your legs if you're in Suktabadapanasana legs. Maybe you can roll over onto your side. If you're in Virasana, you kind of have to push yourself up, and otherwise you can roll over onto your side. We're going to stretch our legs out in front of us for a moment. Take a breath. And we're going to choose a way to be in Shavasana. So I'm going to choose to put my calves up my couch. And that might be a choice that you want. Maybe you're next to your bed and can put your legs up your bed. And if things are not at the right height, if things are too high for you, you can stick a blanket or some sort of prop, a block or a blanket underneath your pelvis so that your calves are up higher, so that you're comfortable on your surface. You can also pretend I'm against a wall. You can go against a wall and just have your legs straight up at the wall. If you've been doing a lot of walking, this is a beautiful thing to do at the end of a long walk, is to lay on the floor and put your legs up a wall. I have an imaginary wall, but you find a real wall if you're doing leg up the wall pose. Or you can skip either of those two things and just come onto your back for a regular Shavasana. If you want to have some support with blankets or pillows or anything you want underneath your knees, take your time to discover the posture that's right for your body in this moment. Remember that Shavasana is where we integrate. Everything that we've done becomes integrated during Shavasana. So as you find yourself falling toward the earth, resting, can you find the breath traveling through your whole being to feel that sense of integration, all the ways that you've touched in with the awareness and presence of being embodied? Can you allow that to settle now? Rest your limbs. Rest your spine. See if you can begin to soften through your face, your eyes. Soften through your jaw and your tongue. Deep breaths in. Deep breaths away.
Let's begin to deepen our breathing. Find our way into the breath, traveling once more through the body. See if you can let the breath be like a river, moving through your limbs, moving through your spine, softening all the places. Let's begin to slowly invite movement. Toes, fingers, wrists, ankles, knees, hips. Turn your head from side to side, whatever is feeling good. And finding your way onto your side, taking your time. Use your arms to help sit up. Go ahead and place your hands together at your heart. Let's just take a moment. The Denver Howl just happened while you guys were in Shavasana. So let's just take a moment to offer our energy outward. Share with your community. Send your love forth to your neighbors, to your family, to your friends, to your community. Namaste. Thank you, everyone. Hope you have a peaceful evening.